my dear friends. Today I am going to bake a Portuguese sponge cake, and this is how it's not looking like, which I'll explain to you what happened. Let me go over the ingredients with you. Cake flour, baking powder, sugar, yogurt, vegetable oil. Today I'm using extra virgin olive oil. I don't care because I have it in hand, but you are very welcome to use normal vegetable oils that might have a less flavor. And then 6 large eggs into yolks and white. Now making sure that your white, the container for the white is very clean, no dust, nothing greasy. Yeah, otherwise you cannot fluff out the egg whites. So let's start. I'm using 20 centimeters baking tray, spring form, and I have already coated with baking paper. Start with the egg yolk. I sprinkle some of the sugar here and all of the yogurt. Well, in my recipe I will use plain yogurt, but today what I have is sweetened. So the sugar contents I have here is 20 grams less. Okay, make sure all in. Now the reason why I say it's a Portuguese sponge cake is because it's September. I was traveling in the countryside of in Portugal. In the B&B, I have one of the most fluffiest and moist sponge cake ever. So I asked for the recipe, and I'm very lucky to have it. But as I followed the recipe and tried it at home, I realized that it's not the flavor is not as what I remember. So I modified it a bit, and this is the result, which I'm quite satisfied. That is why I say it's not how it looks like, because I've decided there are 2 ways to do it. After you're baking, it's done. Okay, now vegetable oil, once again, I will try not to waste any ingredients. Love these ingredients. Try to get every drop all in. Let's work on the whites. First beat it up to a fluffy, soft heat. It's gonna take a minute or 2. Add in the sugar. This is a process which is really interesting. You will see the bubble, the egg whites looks finer, and gradually you will smell this sugar cane as the sugar dissolves into the egg white. One of my favorite steps. See the bubble, how it looks finer. When you bring yourself closer, you can smell the sugar cane. Oh, wonderful. One of the reasons I love doing sponge cake. It's firm enough. Check this out. Yeah? Okay. Let's mix the wet ingredients and the dry ingredients together. At this point, you can start warming up the oven, 180 degrees. Now, when it comes to making sponge cake, there are things that what I learned throughout the experiences is that first of all, you always want to go with egg white in. And you want to, so I'm gonna put around 1/3 of the egg whites. Into the mixture. Now you want to beat the egg whites until it's really firm because we're highly rely on the bubbles leavening the cake. Even though to have, how do I say this? To make sure that it really rises up, I also add 2 teaspoons of organic baking powder. If you're using commercial baking powder, 1 teaspoon will be enough, according to the recipe that the B&B owner gave me. Okay, from the bottom and lifting it up. So this way, we just want to mix the mixture until it's really, really even. But you also don't want to have the movement breaking the bubbles of the egg whites. Then you lose the fluffiness. Okay, always egg whites in first because it will help the cake flour float, sort of floating it like dust on the surface, which is good because it's less likely to jam and form a lot of flour bubbles. And another thing is that cake flour is easily having lumps. So before I start making, getting all the ingredients ready, I actually sift 3 times already. See, lift up and shake it away. This movement is to prevent the cake from forming lumps in the batter. So I do the best I could. Earlier I was too excited and I actually put way too much flour into the batter. You want to do it a little bit at a time. But now I just, see, that's what I mean, the lumps. Good. Slowly but steady, shake it away. I don't know if you can see it. That's very important. So if it's on the surface, I sometimes do so to make sure what's in the bottom is not disturbed by this big movement. Because all I want to do is just evenly break the flour lumps. Successful. Here it got a little bit. It looks like there's nothing on the surface anymore. Then from the bottom, lifting it up, you see these lumps. Most likely it's flour. There's flour inside. Break it. See, flour. Doing all this fussy movement is going to make sure that the outcome is right. You don't want to cut your cake and when you serve your guests and just realize that there's still flour lumps inside your cake. That's really a bummer. Yeah, flour. Flour. See that? So the trick is to add flour, a little bit of portion each time. Like I said earlier, I was talking and I put way too much. See? The consequences is that I'm gonna stand here and keep controlling if there's any lumps as I stir. The fun thing about making sponge is that you're racing with the time. You want to mix the batter as evenly as possible because waiting too long, the air bubbles from the egg whites will vanish. But at the same time, the cake flour is easily turning lumps. You want to prevent that. I think that's the challenge. Otherwise, the ingredients more or less what you can find in the kitchen. Okay, that's more or less. Break them. All right, patiently I have finally mixed all the wet and dry ingredients well together. And by this time, the oven is properly warmed up. Yeah. Tap twice. Okay. In the oven, 40 minutes. See you later. Oh yeah. The cake is baked for 40 minutes exact. And I'm just taking it out. So I leave it here to cool down. And this is what I'm going to show you the difference between these two. When this one comes out, it's literally like this one. But I flipped it over until it cools down completely. So this one stays much more, how do you say, taller. I don't know how you say it. But this one, as it cools down, the bubbles of the egg white is gonna deflate, literally, slowly. And since I'm going to purposely let it deflate, just come down a bit, it doesn't really matter if it's still hot and I demold already. So by the time the bowl cake cools down, the texture when you're eating it and the way it looks like will be also different. Meanwhile, the second one is cooling down. I'm gonna put some jam into the first one. Let's have a look. Oops. Oh, sorry. I'm using raspberry jam today. And last week I used strawberry jam. put whatever the flavor you like. Meanwhile, it's been like 5 minutes already. You see it's collapsing down. It's gonna be more once it completely cools down, but it's really nice. The textures when you put in your mouth is different. I'll eat it. And some icing powder, sugar. More presentable. To hide the imperfection. But it's really, really tasty. This side. The other one is still warm, and the reason why I don't put any other flavors on this one, because it is so fine on the texture and the flavor is relatively more concentrated. It tastes so good the way it is already. You don't need any more flavor to interfere, I think, to mix it. See, it's still steamy. Couldn't get any better than this. Okay, take a look. This one, you will see less bubbles than that one. Okay, and this is also a great example of what not to do. Like I said, I was too much in a rush yesterday and when I baked the first one, and I sifted way too much flour in one time when I tried to mix the batter. And that what happened is that there are a lot of invisible lumps that I couldn't notice. So that's what happened. Anyway, this one is rather successful. With tea, it could be really matchmaking heaven. Which one should I try? I'm gonna try the hot one first. You see? It's almost like jello. Once it cools down, the bottom layer will be even more dense. That's because the weight from the cake is, literally going downwards, so the bottom part will be a little bit more dense than this part. This is really, really, really nice. And that is almost the flavor I've tasted when I am B&B in Portugal. Like air, cloud. It's still warm. This is cooler now. It has its own beauty. Strawberry jam. They're both good. So good. I hope you enjoy home cooking like me, and try both way and tell me how you like it. Please enjoy it. See you next time.